Hi digital designers. Today let's learn a few more advanced modeling tricks that we can add to our tool bag here. I'm going to make a couple small objects that are going to show you some new modeling techniques. One of them is called proportional editing. Then we're going to do a little bit with curves, which are really unique objects that let you do things that are like ropes or cables and things like that. And then we'll finish up with a little bit of subdivision surface. So let's get started. What I'm going to do is add in a cylinder here to start with. And I'm going to pull this cylinder up so it's kind of sitting on my baseline here. And I want to use this to model either a vase or a pot or something that has a little bit more of a rounded shape to it. In edit mode, I'm going to scale this whole thing up quite a bit bigger, and we'll drop it right here onto my baseline. Okay. Now, when I model something like this, the basic cylinder has very limited geometry, meaning if I were to select this top face and scale it, you can see the whole thing is going to narrow into a cone. And for things like vases and jars and things like that, I want it to have a little bit of a wavy curve to it. So that means I need to add some geometry. We do that with loop cuts. I'm going to come in here and I'm going to hit Control R to make one loop cut. And then if I roll my click wheel, I can make more. I'm going to add probably 4 loop cuts here should be enough. When I click, it'll slice that into several pieces. Now the nice thing about that is I can then select one face, and if I scale it, you can see it's only going to bend at that line. It's like making creases in a piece of paper, okay? Now the other thing that I can do with this is a technique called proportional editing. At the top of your screen here, you've got this little target, and this is called proportional editing. Its shortcut is the letter O. When you turn it on, any operation that you do, like scale, move, will have like a brush size around it that you can control. Let me show you what I mean by that. If I hit S for scale, you see that little circle that appeared? That controls how much of my object is about to get scaled. If I roll my click wheel, I can grab more of it. And now watch, as I move my mouse, you can see that everything inside that circle is getting scaled. If I roll my click, I can roll this down so I grab more of the cylinder or less, okay? It's a way where it gives you a little bit more control over what it is you're sculpting. So I'm gonna just round this off a little bit and see I've got a nice bottle shape there. Let's extrude this with E. We're gonna pick this up, okay? And then let's expand it out again. I'm gonna do E to add one more loop, S to scale it, and I'm gonna scale this out just a little bit. E again to lift it up. Okay, and then I'll do some insetting with I and E again. Push this down through the middle and create a nice rounded bottle shape here. Okay, now if I want to round this off even more, I can select these top edges around the outside. So all I have to do is click on one of these and then do select loops, edge loops. That's going to grab every edge that goes around that circle, and I can bevel it with Control B and roll my click wheel off here. Okay, get a nice smooth surface. Let's do that again down here. I'm going to take this one, select loops, edge loops, Control B, and I'll round that bottom off there. Okay, so you can see I can get more organic shapes out of this just by doing some proportional editing and some beveling. Let's move this guy off to the side. Let's talk about curves, okay? When you go to add a new object, Shift A, you can see that right below your meshes here, you have objects called curves. And curves come in lots of different shapes and styles, but let's just start with a basic one here. This is a Bezier curve, okay? It's gonna be really small when you first add it, but the best way to think about this is kind of like a line that we would draw in Adobe Illustrator. When I tab into edit mode, you can see that this line has handles on either end of it, okay? And those handles can be selected. For example, if I grab this end of that handle and I hit G, I can move, oops, let's turn off proportional editing. I hit G, I can move that curve to bend it into an arc. Okay, let me grab this one, we'll do G again, and I'll bend it up. Now, curves can be a little bit tricky to see in 3D space. It's best if you turn your camera to like a front view, and that way when you're moving it, you can see exactly what type of curve you're making. So I'm gonna take these, I'm gonna do G, I'm gonna bend this into a little arc shape right there. Let's look at it from the side view, and you can see that my curve is tilted back. So let's bring that right there. Let's grab this one, and we'll bring it back here. Okay, now my curve is standing straight up. Now, by themselves, curves don't have any thickness. They're kind of invisible until you change them up a little bit. So you notice that when you make a curve, you get a new menu over here for curve data. And if you go to your geometry, you can bevel this thing. You can make it rounded. So all you do is you take the depth slider and you turn it up, and it turns that line into a tube, okay? So you can see how this would be really useful for making things like door handles or sink faucets or cables coming off of different objects. You can control how thick it is using the depth. You can also control the shape of it by pairing it to a different object, but we'll come back to that in a second. If you want your curve to have caps on the end, or you can see right now it's hollow, you can hit this button called Fill Caps, and it fills them in. Okay. Now, once you make part of a curve, you can keep drawing on it by just adding more points. So, for example, if I come over here and I select this point and I do E for extrude, I can bring off another part of the curve. And every time I hit E, it creates a new section of that curve. Okay. Once you grab the handles, you can steer these around and control them. Now, if you're having a hard time controlling that curve and getting it to do the shape that you want, there's one other thing you can do. Select the curve that's there and just delete it. And over here on your side menu, you can see that there's a draw tool. This is pretty cool. You can actually just freehand draw where you want that curve to go. And when you let go, it makes that tube in whatever shape you want. So again, this would be one where I'd want to use my camera views. I'd look at it from up top here. Let's see, here's my lamp. I'm looking at it from above. Why don't I draw the little power cable coming off of it and plugging into the wall? And then I'll come down to my extrusion depth and I can turn this up so that I get a little cable coming off the back. Okay. Now, most of the time, you might want to just leave your curves just like this, so that if you need to make adjustments, you can go into edit mode and you can move these handles around to change the shape. But sometimes you may want to lock that curve into a particular shape. So let's take a look at how to do that. I'm going to move these guys out of the way for a minute. And let's say that I wanted to make like a door frame here. I'm going to add a new cube. And we'll tab into edit mode. I'm going to scale this guy up to make him kind of door shaped. Okay. And let's see, let's lift him up here like that. Okay. Now, what I want to do is just keep the outside edge of this box as like the door frame, the wood paneling that stands off from it. So in edit mode, I'm going to select these pieces. 1, 2, 3, 4. And I'm going to make a copy, Shift D, and move that copy away from the original shape, okay? I also want to get rid of this center face, so I'm going to select that face and hit Delete Only Faces, okay? So you see that just leaves the outer door frame. Now, if I want to separate this from that box, I'll select the edges. So let's go ahead and do that again. I'm taking all these edges and I'm going to make it separate from this box by hitting P, enter. And now I have two separate objects. Okay, there's my door frame. Right now, this door frame is a mesh object, and I can tell because it's got the little triangle next to it. But I can right click it and convert it to a curve. And then I get all those same options that I had before. If I turn up the bevel, it will actually make like a picture frame around shape, okay? Really cool for when you want to create framing or picture frames or anything that goes around a window or door space, okay? So you can see right now that's a curve. if I'm happy with it, I can right click it and convert it back to a mesh and stick it right on the front of my door or my picture frame to create that edge. Okay, let's take those two and we'll move them out of the way here for a second. All right, there was one other thing I wanted to show you today, and that is using subdivision surface. Let's add a new plane here. And I'm going to zoom in and scale this up. And I'll make it a little bit longer like this, okay? This is a flat plane, and I want to be able to model it and make it a little bit more organic. So in edit mode, I'm going to give it a little bit of thickness by extruding it up a bit. And let's give it some geometry with Control R. I'm going to make a loop cut down the middle. And I'm also going to do another one right here. Let's take that back. So Control R, I'll roll my click wheel to cut it a few times like that so that this shape has some geometry to it. Now, when we go back into object mode, I'm going to add subdivision, just like we did with the mushroom, by hitting Control 2. Okay? And you can see that rounds off that object. And the reason I wanted to do this is because now in edit mode, I can grab these edges and let's scale them towards each other a little bit. Okay, let's do the same down here. We'll take this corner and this corner and we'll scale them into each other. And I'm getting this more organic shape here. It's kind of like a surfboard or a leaf, or this could even be a ceiling fan blade. There's lots of different things you could do with this. Okay. If I select the cut that I made down the middle, so let's go to Edge Select, number 2. I'm going to grab all of these by rotating around it and selecting all those edges. There we go. And I can pull on this either up or down to give it some curve. Okay, so if I push it down, I've created this little dip. This is starting to look like a palm tree leaf. Or again, it could be like a fan blade if you want to do that. And that gives me this really cool organic shape. Let's shade it smooth. We'll move it over here to the center. And I'm going to move its anchor point to the middle. So let's do Shift S. We'll do... Here, let's come out of here. Let's tab into edit mode, right click. And do set origin to the 3D cursor. Set the middle point of this right to the center of that origin. And then I'm going to rotate it so it stands up a little bit. Okay, there we go. And let's duplicate it. We'll do Shift D and then rotate Z. We can turn one this way. Shift D, rotate Z. We'll put another one over here. Shift D, rotate Z. And we'll put one over here. Okay, and now I'm getting kind of a flower shape or a plant shape here. We could use our proportional editing on this. So if I go into edit mode and I take that proportional editing button, we could grab just this edge and let's do G. We'll make this really big and you see how I can bend this off now. Okay, let's do it to this one too. I'm going to edit, grab an edge. We'll use G for move, and then I've got proportional editing on so I can move this around and bend these a little bit. Let's come over to this guy. We'll grab an edge, G for move, big old proportional editing brush so that I can really bend this thing off. And one more, let's take this guy, tab into edit mode, grab an edge, G, and we'll push this guy down. Cool. So now I have a pretty cool plant shape that can be grouped together, and I can put this into my base. Pick this up, and we'll just move it right over here. Okay. These are some tricks and tips that you guys are going to be using as you model out your rooms. For more ideas, check out the tutorial videos that I posted in Google Classroom and get lots of ideas for things that you can build. All right, good luck.